Aloha and good morning. This is Kirsten Baumgart Turner, host of Sustainable Hawaii. I'm very delighted this morning to have two young guests, Josh Smith and Leah DiMarchi, who are both graduates of Punahou School in 2013, and currently they're attending university, both musical theater majors. Josh Smith is returning to Pace University in New York with as a sophomore after taking a year away as a cast member on Beauty and the Beast in their world tour.
Yep.
And Leah DiMarchi just returned from a summer at Oxford University studying. She's also appeared professionally on the series Hawaii Five-0 in Hawaii and in regional theater in Pittsburgh. I've asked them both to be here today in order to help give us a young perspective on the meaning of sustainability and the practices of sustainability. One of the things that we did last week and we put up on YouTube, I believe yesterday, was interviewing people on the street at Bishop Square and across the street at King and Bishop, and we got some very gracious people to stop during their lunch hour and share with us what their perceptions in Hawaii are of sustainability and how they practice sustainability. I encourage our viewers to look at that video and see what their peers on the street, mostly working professionals who are much older than the two of you, although a Punahou student did stop me and say, Auntie,
That's
Oh, wow.
awesome.
I'm Micah's mom.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, that's
And
fantastic.
it was really fun, and so she did speak to us as well.
I'm good.
But I want to ask the two of you from a younger perspective and also people who have been on the mainland and abroad. First, Josh, can you tell me what your concept of sustainability is?
Certainly. Well, I think sustainability is about anything that can support itself. So I think sustainability to me means not taking away more from the earth than you're giving to the earth, and helping to create an environment that can support itself, that doesn't need help from outside resources and isn't being damaged by outside resources, but is in it of itself able to take care and continue to produce and provide for itself and for the people. Yeah.
And what are some ways that you practice sustainability?
Goodness. My family and I are very big on recycling, and we try to make sure that anything that we would potentially throw away that can be recycled gets recycled, whether that be newspapers, cardboard, cans, bottles, glass, even greenery, like leaves and stuff, that can be recycled and reused. And my family recently also went solar. We got solar panels
That's
installed
awesome.
on our house, which was great.
Very cool.
And those are some of the larger ways, but I also think I try to just be conscious about, you know, if I'm at the beach and I see litter and it's not a big deal to pick it up and throw it away, go ahead and take the initiative to do that. And, you know, if I have trash and I am sick of carrying it, be conscious enough to like find a trash can and not just leave it somewhere, you know?
Terrific. Leah,
Awesome.
what is your concept of sustainability?
I think for me, to be sustainable means to use the least amount of natural resources as possible while still having like a lifestyle that's enjoyable and comfortable. Because if it's not sustainable for an enjoyable life, then it's not really sustainable for, you know, for a long term. So I think producing the least amount of waste as possible and using the least amount of resources, natural resources, as you can.
And what are some of those natural resources that you think about when you talk about?
Well, for me, what comes up is I was always raised as a thrift shopper. I just don't really, I was never big into retail shopping, and so much of, I mean, the materials that go into producing those clothes and creating factories to produce, there's just a lot that goes into making new materials out of basically nothing. So when I can, I try to use things that are already in existence, if that makes sense.
Right.
And what natural resources do you think about?
The big one for me is water, actually. As a kid, I was that child who took like half-hour-long showers, and
As a
you
kid?
know, as a kid,
Oh my
I know. And yeah, I think for me, you know, just being conscious about like how you wash dishes, how you doing larger loads of laundry, even if you just need that one shirt right now, you know, taking shorter showers, being conscious of when you choose to water the grass and wash your car and things like that. I have really seen a change in not only my behavior, but my family's behavior and relationship with using water. And and it's such a precious resource.
Especially in Hawaii.
Especially in Hawaii. And I think that, personally, I just feel like that's one of my...
I think that's really poignant, especially because we had the huge 500,000 gallon sewage and drainage spill at Ala Moana yesterday, which has closed Waikiki
Wow.
Beach
Yeah.
for both sides of Waikiki. I forget how long, how many miles. I think it's 4 miles of beach that are closed.
That's incredible.
Big brown water warning, right?
Because of our high rains, but also the inefficiency. We had a sewage pump that failed. And of course, that's key to our tourism industry, which is devastated right now during the height of the summer season.
Yeah.
So your efforts to cut back on your water usage, to keep that volume out of the sewage system, because it's not just the sewage, right? It's the drainage from gray water.
Right.
What are some of the ways you think folks your age are becoming more aware and practical about what they're doing with water conservation?
Well, when I moved to the mainland from Hawaii, it was kind of the first time my roommates and I started getting a water bill or an electricity bill for the first time. It had always been, you know, the parents get that first, and we rarely were aware of our usage in numbers. But now that most of us, I mean, who go off to college, are getting those bills, or at least those numbers, you know, on a page in front of us, sometimes paying for it ourselves, I think it's more of a responsibility on us, and so automatically we become more aware, not only for monetary reasons, but also hopefully for, you know, for environmental reasons as well.
You actually see the volume that you're using for the first time?
Yes, I've never, you know, and grids based on months and different, it can be scary, but it can also be empowering if you see, well, I'm going to try and cut back this week or this month with my roommates, and then next month you see it on your whatever you get in the mail, your bill, and you're like, oh, we did it. We actually decreased our use, and not only is it cheaper, but you know, you're doing something better for the environment. So it's great.
I think to backpack off of that, I think our generation is really just realizing that we can step up and take responsibility for our actions, and especially being at a point in our life where we are experiencing independence at a different level for the first time. It's nice because there's no one to blame but yourself. There's no one to keep you accountable but yourself. But at the same time, like, you are in control of your actions, and you can make those decisions and like really make efforts to make a difference in how you use natural resources, be it water, be it electricity, what have you.
Have you both noticed that in the last few years since you graduated high school, a heightened awareness of sustainability, or is it sort of status quo amongst your peers? And is there a difference between how this topic was discussed in high school? So I know that Punahou has a heightened awareness of sustainability.
Yes.
And your experiences in college, both in Pittsburgh and in Manhattan.
I definitely feel like in the last few years, thinking green and being conscious of the environment and things of that nature have been extremely like more visible in culture for young people, whether that be like where we grocery shop and clothing brands trying to, you know, produce their clothes in a much more sustainable and earth-friendly way. I definitely think that it's a trend, and I don't mean that in like a shallow way. I think it's just something that people are having a real awakening about, and I think the conversation about sustainability and our relationship with the earth has definitely changed and evolved in the last few years since we've graduated. I think we were both very fortunate to go to a school like Punahou, where sustainability and a positive relationship with nature is so emphasized. But regardless, I think just society and the culture of our generation overall is really starting to pick up on this as something that really needs to be a priority for us.
Do you experience that also at Carnegie Mellon?
Well, sustainability was really absolutely at the forefront at Punahou. I feel like since I can remember in third grade, you know, learning about where our water comes from, where electricity comes from. So I feel like I'm very blessed to have had that background and working at the Luke Center at Punahou, which is a community service organization that is really housed just in the school, which was such a blessing. I think it's one of the only high schools to have a program like that. So I feel like I almost got so much at Punahou that anywhere else would be a little bit less prominent. So in college, I found that on the mainland it's not as much at the forefront, because when you're on an island, you really do have to be especially aware of what you're using and where everything's coming from. So I find that it's not as much in the front of the brain of my classmates as it was in high school, and I think that has to do with just our situation here in Hawaii. But you know, hopefully it catches on as much there as it was for us.
And I would
here.
definitely agree with what she's saying. My classmates at Pace are definitely not as sustainable and conscientious about how their actions and mindsets affect the environment. In comparison to my friends back home. But I think overall, there is like a heightened sense of awareness. Like I think it's just about to what degree people feel they need to, you know, make changes and whatnot. Because I think there's a difference between having that knowledge and acting on it. And I think that one of the big differences I see with people in Hawaii versus people on the mainland is that people in Hawaii act on that knowledge, whereas people on the mainland kind of just like know their stuff and are comfortable with that.
I'm wondering, what are some of the specific sustainability initiatives, or what is the conversation like on a more official level on the mainland in the cities you're living in, but also on your campuses?
Wow.
Is it very remarkable?
Not to the same degree that it was at Punahou, but that being said, Pittsburgh was born out of a steel industry, so it has a big past of honestly a lot of pollution and a lot of waste, especially in terms of the air and whatnot. They're going into a lot of fracking in local areas, and since the fracking
and fracking, by the way, is to produce natural gas, and it's one of the things that we discussed on the greenhouse gas show that we had with McKenna Kaufman.
Very cool.
Yes.
Well, good issue to talk about. But when those issues really start affecting the lives of people, you know, when it comes to the home front, then I see people, you know, really caring about it, because when it's in your backyard, things are being done. But yes, so Pittsburgh is definitely not only being gentrified, but cutting down on their emissions, and I see a lot more electric cars there. So for a city who has really risen from a lot of smoke, yes, I think it's coming along quite well. Yeah.
Awesome.
And do you see electric vehicle charging stations in the city?
Yes, we have a couple on campus at Carnegie Mellon, which is really great, really great. They encourage carpooling, so little bits here.
Smart cars?
Yes, I've seen those too, especially like parking spots for them. And
how about bike sharing?
I'm not sure about bike sharing. It's a little bit tough because of the rough winters there, so not as much biking, but I'm sure it exists.
I don't know, since you both have been away, if you're aware that we're about to launch a major bike share program in Honolulu, and it's very exciting because they're reviewing and allowing the public to go out and review the potential bikes and the technology that they're using for taking out the bikes and returning them. So at the Honolulu Design Center, I believe it continues through this week, you can go down and try out the potential
That's awesome.
bikes. It's really exciting.
Wow.
Actually, now that I think of it, they just installed a bike share in my neighborhood in Pittsburgh. So, well, yes, that is.
And how
That's
about in
fantastic.
Manhattan?
Yeah.
Well, Pace, I'm not sure has really caught up quite yet. I'm not sure that I see many efforts at my school to be sustainable outside of just having a recycling bin next to every trash can. It's a school in and of the city. We don't necessarily have an isolated, separate campus. All of our buildings are intermingled with the rest of New York City.
Right.
And
I believe it's in the financial district.
it's in the
right?
financial district,
So
right by Wall
bike
Street.
share may
and-
not be a popular thing.
Not quite, no.
In Wall Street.
No. Yeah, and we're right by South Street Seaport. We're right by the Brooklyn Bridge, the new World Trade Center. And yeah, it's really hard to say. I'm not sure that there's really a passion or like a desire to explore sustainability and to explore those options. I'm not even sure that there's like a club or an organization on campus related to these ideas, and I'm speaking honestly, and I think it's kind of unfortunate. New York City as a whole is obviously aware that they are an industrial powerhouse. A quick Google search will show you the statistics on how much pollution and waste that they produce annually. That being said, city bike programs are becoming increasingly popular, more so than cabs and driving, which is great.
Terrific.
And New Yorkers walk. To be honest,
you don't want to drive in New
you don't
York
want to drive in New
yourself.
York.
You don't
That's
wanna-
a
Absolutely
huge
not.
sustainability practice.
Right.
Well, we're going to go to break, and when we come back, I want to ask these two young, intelligent college students about their experiences abroad this past year and what the perceptions and practices of sustainability are. Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island and ER physician. Every other Tuesday, I get to host a show here on the ThinkTech program about healthcare. We call it Healthcare in Hawaii. It's really enjoyable for me to bring other healthcare leaders from around the state to talk about our pressing issues. Hawaii has long been the health state, but we need to keep up the momentum, the inertia, and with your help and with your participation, we can come and share all of the big issues that are pressing day to day. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday, alternating weeks from 2 to 2:45.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen. I'm the host of Likeable Science on ThinkTech Hawaii. We talk about why people should like science, why science is actually fun, how science is a dynamic and vital part of everyone's life, why everyone, every man, woman, and child on the planet should really know science, should love science, should be familiar with science. So it's a great show. People come on here and have interesting conversations with us. They tell us why they do what they do, why they love it, why we should love it too. I hope you'll join us every Friday, 1 to 2 p.m. And of course, you can see it anytime on YouTube. Aloha.
Hi, this is Kirsten Baumgart Turner. I'm back with my guests on Sustainable Hawaii, Josh Smith and Leah DiMarchi. We've been having a great conversation on young people's, particularly college students' perspectives on sustainability and sustainable practices. They both had great experiences this past year abroad. Josh, you were on a world tour as a cast member of Beauty and the Beast. And I know that you've had some phenomenal experiences. Just tell us first what some of the countries you visited were.
Sure. We were in Istanbul, Turkey, as well as Abu Dhabi, Greece, Italy, Slovenia, the Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, and Macau, and Hong Kong, China.
Wow.
I left out a few. There are some places I
gosh.
visited that we didn't perform in.
You're not
but
going to speak of.
Yeah.
And being on Josh's Facebook this year has been one of the most exciting, revealing.
fun.
We got to experience vicariously your
I'm so
incredible
glad.
too.
and your wonderful photography,
Oh,
which is
gosh.
just terrific.
Kind of an Insta.
Could you share with our audience some of your impressions
Sure.
of the topic of climate change and sustainability in any of those places that you visited?
I'd love to. Well, the tour took us mainly to a lot of heavily populated industrial areas, and especially in the second leg of tour when we were in Southeast Asia and we were in Manila, Philippines, and Bangkok, and we definitely saw an immense amount of pollution and congestion at kind of an alarming rate. I would say particularly in the city of Manila. We were staying in Metro Manila. Manila is made up of 7 or 8 districts, and Metro Manila is definitely one of the most traffic congested, polluted, very dirty water, very dirty air.
Sounds like it was shocking to you.
It was. It was, even more so than New York City.
Which already was a big
which
culture
was already,
shock for you.
yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I think with New York City, people are still conscious about it, and like, they do what they can, and I think they may not feel like there are as many opportunities and resources for them to be sustainable, especially when you're living a New York City lifestyle, which is often very busy, and you kind of just need to focus on getting things done. But in Manila and in the Philippines, it kind of felt like
Center Stage airs every
it was just
Wednesday.
less of a priority. It was really, really on the back burner.
Do you think that might have been somewhat of the difference in quality of life, standards of living? How did that affect
Aloha, my name is
people's
Josh Green.
awareness
I host
and
a
or
show
practice of
called Healthcare in
sustainability?
Hawaii.
I definitely think it affected the quality of life of the population. But what's also very important is that the Philippines specifically was a perfect example of the range of sustainable practices and environmental friendliness. Because in an area like Metro Manila, we definitely saw people living and experiencing maybe a harsher quality of life and having a harder time, with just day-to-day things because they're just in a dirty environment. That being said, we were in the Philippines for 5 weeks and we had a lot of time to explore that beautiful, beautiful country. And as soon as you step outside of Metro Manila and you're in Batangas, Tagaytay, take a trip to Palawan, Cebu, you're seeing some of the most beautiful, well taken care of parts of the world. I mean, just green grass that is deep and rich, and just crystal clear blue water that you can see straight to the bottom of. And it was just so interesting to see these two very different approaches to sustainability so geographically close to each other.
So it sounds like you're saying that population explosion has a lot to do with the quality of people's lives, but also their abilities to practice more naturally sustaining practices.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, because a lot of those areas that we saw that were much better taken care of weren't as densely populated, and it was a little bit difficult to go to these other places, to Taal Volcano, to the Hidden Valley Waterfall, and then come back to Metro Manila and be like, whoa.
And that may be how people feel when they go to the Adirondacks in the upstate New York. This phenomenal,
absolutely.
pristine state park, and then they come
Back to the city.
I'm in the same state.
So
Yeah,
my guess
yes.
is that you might experience that in other places. Did you see that in other metropolitan cities where you got outside as well?
Certainly. I would say Thailand was pretty similar to the Philippines in that regard, that the densely populated areas of Bangkok and Chiang Mai were, just a bit dirtier and maybe not as environmentally friendly. And then as soon as you left those areas and you were out in more a rural part, you saw that not just that the environment was cleaner because there were less people, but that people were making real efforts to take care of their environment.
So
That's
not only that they were just living those rural lifestyles that didn't, does
Yeah,
that make sense?
Right. No, it wasn't just because they were outside of the city. That was certainly part of
effort?
it. It was a conscious
Okay.
effort to use water differently.
Oh, interesting.
To really conserve electricity in a certain way, and
This brings up a very interesting topic in sustainability, which is that the ecological definition of sustainability has, I think, and let me know what you do, become the mantra for what sustainability is, and that is allowing ecological systems to replenish themselves so that they can provide the natural resources we need for, indefinitely into the future.
Right.
But in 1987, when the Brundtland Commission issued their report at the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, which is when there was really the beginning of a very official movement and identification of what sustainability means. The Brundtland Commission report was very specific in identifying quality of life and distribution of wealth and equal access to natural resources as part of the definition of sustainability. And that has a very strong social justice bent that doesn't
Certainly.
just focus on whether or not we're replenishing
Right.
resources, but how people are able to use them
Yep.
and use them in a healthy and
Yeah.
productive and high quality of life
Right.
outcome.
Right.
And
What, did you see any of this at Oxford, Leah?
Well, let's see. Well, I was also thinking. Josh mentioned when we were talking about his trip that he also experienced a huge wealth discrepancy. I mean, he would
Immensely.
see, kids outside of very wealthy
Yeah.
places who did not obviously have access to
No, yeah.
clean water and even clothing sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't experience that in Oxford to the same degree. I definitely did experience, definitely metropolitan areas. I was in London for a little bit, but I was also in more rural areas as I was traveling, always by bus. So that was one way I noticed is that throughout the areas of the UK I was. Mass transit is very popular. Most people take it. I mean, there are buses that will take you from London to Oxford to Stratford-on-Avon, and a lot of people are using that from different socioeconomic groups. So I would see wealthy businessmen using the bus and little old ladies who probably do not have a huge ecological footprint using it as
Right,
well.
yeah.
So that was great, and I find that when I travel, walking is the best way to get around because you can experience everything just firsthand through your own eyes. So that's an easy way that I was able to do that.
What about when you landed? Did you land at Heathrow Airport?
I did.
Were there any visual signs of people's awareness or trying to practice sustainability?
Yeah, actually, I remember seeing little signs near all of the outlets. Always conserve energy. Don't use more than you need to. In my dorm at Oxford, which was definitely an older dorm, they had a sign right next to it. They had some kind of cute little English slogan like "Don't waste." I don't remember what it was specifically, but they're definitely on it, especially in the more metropolitan areas. They need to be. 'Cause they're using
And
more.
did you experience that? And I know you flew in and out of umpteen airports.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I definitely saw huge efforts to promote sustainable lifestyles specifically in Hong Kong and Singapore and Abu Dhabi. In the UAE. I felt like those three places of everywhere that we went were the most conscientious of being visible and vocal about promoting these principles. Whether that be like, don't forget to turn off the water signs in your hotel room, or they also just had like a very, I can't remember exactly how they did this, but they had a very clever and effective way of conserving electricity in our hotel rooms in those places.
Oh, was it that you put your key in
That
a
was
little
definitely
slip
one
and
of
then
it.
you can't turn on your lights unless you...
Unless that's in there.
Maybe.
That was definitely one
That
way
helped
that,
me.
yeah. But they were, oh goodness.
Did they have the automatic
never-
lights sensing your presence when you went in and out of rooms? Is that
Some
one of
places
the
they did
things?
for me.
In Abu Dhabi, they certainly did. Goodness, I feel like, yeah, but I wish I could remember more specifics.
It'll
but
come
I do
to you.
remember, yeah, but I do remember those three cities in particular were very conscious and very vocal and visible about that. That being said, though, those are not, those are, financially well-off cities. When you compare that to a place like Metro Manila, where there's a lot of extreme poverty and a lot of extreme wealth, but when you look at a place like Singapore, their economy is very strong. Financially, they're pretty much, they're very stable.
They're very new.
They're very new.
Really what you're saying is they have more leisure and ability to focus on these issues.
Absolutely.
Whereas where people are struggling
Yes.
Yeah.
to make ends meet, it's very much more difficult
Absolutely.
to focus on climate change and the environment and your practices.
Because their
Yeah.
priorities are entirely different.
Goes
And that's
for wherever
exactly
you
what
are.
the Brundtland Commission was trying to achieve, was to say, until we have a greater equality and people can meet their personal
Right.
needs, it's going to be very difficult to
That's so
ask
true.
developing countries to
do their
employ
part.
the same practices and do their part.
Right.
So you were actually seeing that in action.
Oh, absolutely.
Firsthand.
And especially in Indonesia. I remember that was kind of, as bad as Metro Manila was, Indonesia, we were in Jakarta, and you would not believe the kind of traffic they have there. I know we complain about like H1 West can get crazy, and it does, but you would not believe the type of traffic they had in Indonesia. I remember we tried to go three miles on a highway just going straight, 3 miles, took us 45 minutes.
Now, do they have
Wow.
light rail in Singapore?
In Singapore, they do. In Singapore, they have a subway train system similar to
So
what
less
you have
traffic?
in Manhattan. Oh, people do not drive in Singapore. There are no cars on the
And in
roads.
Indonesia, do they have
All
light rail?
cars. I'm not sure what Indonesia's public transportation situation is. We never saw any rail or subway.
Well, that's telling in and of itself.
Yeah, it was not visible to us, and we,
Right.
We were tourists, so we like got out.
It would
and
be clear to you.
It would be very clear. The
Well-
only way we knew to get around were taxis and walking.
So Leah, in the UK and in Pittsburgh, and
Yes.
actually it would be very interesting to know in Pittsburgh, because it's been a very depressed economy ever since the steel industry and then a lot of the coal mines went down. Is there a similar quality of life issue? And I'm going to go to break and let you think about
Yeah,
that
good question.
and tell us about it when we come back.
That's great.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on ThinkTech Hawaii. Center Stage airs every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and of course you can check out our archives on YouTube or on ThinkTech Hawaii anytime you like. Why should you do that? Because this is an arts show that I believe is making a difference in lives. We talk with artists of various ilk. We talk with painters and writers, playwrights, novelists, poets, sculptors, dancers, you name it, directors, actors, of course. And we don't only talk about what people do, but we talk about how they do it. And my favorite part of the conversation, we talk about why they do it. And it's really common on this show to hear people say, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And it's very common to hear people afterwards who have seen the show say the same thing. And I hear all the time that people are inspired by the conversations that we have. So why don't you join us and be inspired too? That's Center Stage on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. We'll see you Center Stage.
Hi, this is Kirsten Baumgart Turner, and we're back with Leah DiMarchi and Josh Smith. And Leah was about to tell us about the Pittsburgh, both the city and the rural areas' responses to sustainability, and what are some of the differences in quality of life issues and ability to practice sustainability?
Well, a big surprise when I moved to Pittsburgh for school was I would see communities right next door to each other who were very, very opposite on the wealth spectrum and the quality of life spectrum. I mean, my university would be very, very close to a high school, considered kind of an inner city, not very well supported high school, and then just houses, huge mansions of families that had been there forever and had made their money in the steel industries, but also the families of the steel workers, on the other hand, who had been there just as long, but had not made quite the same.
Came out in a different situation.
Yes, definitely. So people who had moved there at the same amount, both immigrants, Carnegie, for example, and then the workers, who live very different lives
Right,
now.
yeah.
So I think the point that it's very hard to focus on sustainability and improving your limiting your footprint if you're thinking about where your next meal is coming from or where your school books are coming from. So I think that the point that we need to make equal access, we need to focus on equal access before we start preaching about sustainability to these families and these communities
Who don't have the resources
Right, who
to
don't have the
necessarily live
resources.
that lifestyle.
I think that's a great point. So yes, I mean, in so many places, we're seeing side by side, just absolute discrepancy.
Yeah,
So.
no, for sure, and that's definitely a trend that I saw on tour as well.
Oh,
I mean,
I
an
bet.
extreme class disparity, and you can't ignore the fact that sustainability is related to the social justice issue of class disparity. People that don't have the resources or the money or the education to really practice these principles and make it a priority in their life, they're not going to be able to, And the more we ignore that part of the problem, and the more we continue to focus on telling people what to do and how to live, we're going to be, fighting a battle that we aren't really going to win because we aren't addressing the root issue as to why more sustainable practices aren't being put in place in a larger population scale.
Well, one of the things that I know in Pittsburgh is that you experienced that horrendous winter that was up
in
and
a
down
row.
the East Coast.
Oh,
2 in a row,
gosh.
that's
And
right.
you experienced one of them in
Oh,
New York
yeah.
City as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So
And
I'm
in
just
Italy.
I'm just curious, was there an awareness and a discussion about climate change being caused by our poor sustainability practices, because scientists all agree that the heightened weather extremes are a cause of climate warming.
Yes.
So was that a discussion, or were people just running for their mittens?
Okay. I had really nothing to compare it to coming from Hawaii. I was like, winter, it's supposed to be cold.
Oh,
But there
gosh.
was definitely talk. I mean, people who had been long established in Pittsburgh said this is the worst yet. And I thought, oh, that's unfortunate for me. But I mean, you would hear little buzzes here and there, oh, climate change, but it was never a huge topic there. I never really, until I came home, I think. I mean, my parents talked about.
Yeah.
I think it's more discussed here, and you know, with this huge heat wave we've been having, all I've been hearing is climate change. But
Yeah.
when it came to winter on the mainland, it didn't really come up as a reason for it. So
I had a very similar experience in New York. Yeah, very similar. It was one of the worst New York City winters, and New Yorkers were vocal about that, but they weren't vocal about feeling like it was related to climate change or anything like that. But back home, that was much more the narrative.
Yes.
My parents and people that we know here that had lived on the East Coast and things like that were like, oh yeah, like that's probably related to global warming, climate change,
Interesting
things
how
like that. So the conversation and the narrative was very different in those two places, which I think goes back to what we were discussing at the very beginning of the show about people locally in Hawaii just having a very different perception of environmental practices and their relationship with nature.
right.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true for island communities everywhere, or are we particularly attuned in Hawaii because we've made some particular policy decisions and there's been more political action?
Well, I mean, I was just thinking about how Manhattan is practically an
It's
island.
an island,
And
yep.
the UK is practically a couple of islands, if
Yeah.
you look at it that way. I'm not sure.
I think if I have to make the best hypothesis I can, I'm going to say it is more related to Hawaii specifically, because even with the number of Southeast Asian and atropical environments that we were staying in and islands, I still felt like Hawaii was on a different level as far as the conversation about environment.
Leah, do you think that
environment.
that has anything to do with Native Hawaiian cultural perspectives and our embracing or not embracing of Hawaiian culture?
Yeah, I think it has to
And
do with
values.
a couple of things. I think, first off, the location of our island as opposed to Manhattan. We're not very close to other things, so
Yeah.
we really have to be sustainable ourselves. We're also a fairly well-developed state in terms of, how far we've come and the communities we do have here. But I think that the sense of really having to be responsible for the land and the culture that goes along with that land. I mean, so much of Native Hawaiian culture is rooted in what comes from the ocean, this small amount of land that we are given as a gift, that I think is maybe taken for granted by a lot of other places. It's just, in Hawaii you can't own a beach. You know what I mean? It belongs to the land, and I don't think that people
Elsewhere
have that same
perspective.
view.
Yeah. I think Hawaii's deep-rooted sense in love and responsibility towards the land is absolutely related to Native Hawaiian and Native Polynesian culture.
Yeah, and our lifestyles. My lifestyle when I come back home revolves around the land and what I do here. And,
Yep.
yeah.
Going to the beach
Yeah,
and hiking
hiking.
and things of that nature.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the Hawaii state motto, which is slipping my mind right now,
Oh goodness.
It's gonna come to me.
oh,
my
it's
gosh.
embarrassing. We all should know it.
Yeah, we really should.
But the right of the land is perpetuation.
Yes.
is
There we go.
righteousness, but Imaukohoka- I'm so embarrassed. But has that motto, which you all are both obviously aware of, do you think made a difference in young people's perspectives in Hawaii?
So the right of the land is perpetuated in.
The life of the
The
land
life of
is
the land.
perpetuated in righteousness. And I'm going to find here how to
And pronounce
properly
it
pronounce it
beautifully.
in Hawaiian, because I don't speak Hawaiian, which I'm very embarrassed about.
For me that motto reminds me, as I've gone on and gone to college, I've kind of, I think, along the way learned to take care of my body in a different way, in a sustainable way, and I see the land as the same as as the same kind of thing. The more
Yeah.
the more good things you put into it, the more it's going to renew itself, and it'll do more for you if you do more for it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I look
I'm
at
going to
it.
try not to butcher the Hawaiian,
Good
but
luck.
just so that we don't all go to bed tonight wondering why we couldn't remember this.
You got this.
Uamau ke ea o ka aina I ka pono. And that is translated as the life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. And I imagine there are not similar state mottos on the mainland
Or
Do you know?
abroad.
or abroad.
think
Not
so.
necessarily, no.
Yeah.
And I think I love what you said about taking care of your body in a different way, and how that affects taking care your relationship with the land in a different way, because I feel like the land is an extension of your body. That's our environment. And we can only ask it to take care of us as much as we take care of it.
Yeah.
And
That's a really good point.
yeah.
Well, on that note, in your work in theater, both you, Josh, first, your theater company traveling around the world, what are some of the sustainability practices that were employed by
Yeah.
this big Disney Broadway production?
Oh goodness. Yeah, we could have done a lot better.
It's
We
good
could have done
to
a
look
lot
at.
better.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that we were the best about using our resources, but I don't think that we were in any ways more wasteful than we needed to be. Does that make sense? We did a lot of laundry, and I'm not sure that it was all necessary. I think.
Yeah.
Well, some of it was certainly necessary, especially for the dancers. But
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that you had done a lot of community service.
We did do, especially in impoverished areas. In Italy, we donated a lot of our winter clothes to like a children's shelter. And in the Philippines, we volunteered at an orphanage a number of times. We also, in Greece, volunteered with an English school, like a school where they teach Greek kids English. With regards to sustainability, though,
A lot of traveling.
there's a lot of traveling, and even
Did the company ever talk about measuring your carbon footprint of traveling and maybe investing in some of the carbon offsets that are possible now for
That would have been-
Touring
excellent
companies
flights?
should do that.
that would have been fantastic. No, that didn't
Oh my
happen,
gosh.
unfortunately.
Well,
There's
that would
so
have
many
made such a big
companies. I mean,
difference.
and anywhere in the world, how many touring theater companies there are? Why is that?
That should absolutely
we should
be a
bring
thing.
that back. Yeah.
That should totally be an initiative
So
that
I was
touring companies
I was
take.
going to ask you both that what are some of the things you might do in your theatrical careers
Right.
to advance sustainability?
Ooh. Oh gosh. That's a great question.
It is.
As you can tell by our.
Well, I was thinking about this. A lot of theatrical careers, 90% of actors are at any given moment kind of out of work. So along with this career, a lot of times is financial instability. And I think for me, ways that I try and cut down financially as well as sustainably, I mean, food waste is a huge one. I'm very passionate about reducing food waste. So I think that's an easy one that anybody can do, especially as burgeoning actors who are trying to reduce cost as well as
Right,
footprint. So
right.
just even little things. I mean, when I'm back home, we have such great sunlight here that we don't need the lights on. I can air dry my clothing, which isn't the case in New York as much. We don't really have
Nope.
space to have a line. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's hard. I have to
That
think
is a
about
really
that.
difficult
What do you
question.
think?
Goodness,
That's hard.
I think make the most of the resources that you do have. For example, like as actors, we print a lot of headshots,
Yes.
resumes, particularly in musical theater. We just have binders
Oh.
and binders of sheet music, scripts, sides. Like we use a lot of paper
Yeah,
in our
nothing
industry.
is really electronic.
Not really,
in-
no, which is unfortunate.
And do you recycle all of that?
When you can,
We don't really know where a lot of our paper goes when we give someone a headshot and a resume. Hopefully they don't throw it out.
but certainly that happens.
Probably happens.
Yeah. I
Well,
think,
maybe I've given you an idea for if not a graduate thesis,
Yeah.
maybe a master's thesis in trying to help
A
do
sustainable
some carbon
career in
offsets
theater.
for
it's
theater
gotten better
productions.
though, especially like going to college in New York City at a school we were allowed to audition outside. It's moving towards digitalization, you can submit for an audition by emailing the company your headshot and resume, but just as many companies are still accepting headshots and resumes via like snail mail and still doing, you know, envelopes and like, we go through a lot of paper in our industry.
We're gonna look into
so
it.
much paper.
We'll come back to you with
We will
some
come back
ideas.
to you on that. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. So I actually am going to hold you to it.
Please
And
do.
maybe next year when you come back, next summer, we can have you on again and see whether any of these perspectives have changed and what you guys are doing about it in your industry.
Certainly.
In the meantime, as ambassadors of Hawaii, maybe you can give people in Hawaii one or two positive things that you are going to take with you from Hawaii as you go back to school just in a few days.
Vitamin D. I'm gonna take that vitamin D and
yes,
bottle it.
Yes.
Love for the land, and I think if you love the actual land that you're living on, you're gonna want to take care of it more. And the more it affects you positively. I know when I come back, that vitamin D and just the ocean does such good things for me that it makes me want to do good things for it.
Certainly. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to take away a huge respect and love for animals and wildlife that I think is something that has been inspired by my life here in Hawaii. And definitely an awareness of my water usage specifically. That's just become a different priority in my life. And I think if I can find ways to really cut back on my paper usage as an actor, you know, I'm gonna do those things. But
Terrific.
yeah.
Well, I thank you both very much for talking with us today, and we look forward to having you back when you come home for break next
Thanks
summer.
for having us.
you so
Yeah.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you,
Fantastic.
Leah.
Thank you.
This is Sustainable Hawaii, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Aloha.